Barutsky set out to kill these three women. That was his intent, and I think it's different from other serial killers in the fact that it was all done probably within the period of 8 hours.
I received a phone call requesting me for an active shooter.
Essentially, the manhunt started.
I caught sight of something white. Didn't initially know what it was, but circled back around to get a better look, and the object was gone.
The first 911 call was received on September 22nd, 2015 at 8:52 in the morning, and it was in Wilno, Ontario, the residence of Anastasia Kuzyk. The caller was Anastasia's sister, who was present at the time, and she reported that our suspect had come in and shot her sister, and she basically ran out of the house running for her life. Within half an hour, a second 911 call comes in Foymount, and that's the residence of Natalie Warmerdam. The caller was Natalie's son, who was present at the time, and it was similar circumstances that he's seen his mother being chased by the suspect who was carrying a gun. He ran out of the house running for his life, basically, managed to call 911. So we're still looking for our suspect, and the third 911 call comes in, which was the murder of Carol Culleton. It was quickly determined that it's the same suspect responsible for all three, and we consider this an active shooter situation. Essentially, the manhunt started. It was a multi-tiered response by uniformed members, detectives. We were fortunate that some emergency response team members were doing some training in Algonquin Park. They immediately deployed to the area. Aviation services were contacted for a helicopter.
I received a phone call on the police radio and on the satellite phone requesting me for an active shooter. I picked up 3 tactics and rescue officers from the Lake Simcoe Airport, and right around 11 in the morning we departed from there.
Potential victims are located, they're taken to places of safety. The courthouse was locked down, some OPP detachments, some schools in the area. Through the tracking of his cell phone, we were able to track him into Ottawa City Police jurisdiction.
I dropped off our tactics and rescue officers in the field so that they could be deployed with the Ottawa Police Tactical Unit. Lifted back off to conduct a search of the woods for the area. As I started the search, the Ottawa Police aircraft was in the air as well. We communicated together to set assigned altitudes. They were using a camera. I was using visual, just eyeballs that day because I didn't have an operator.
So after 2:10 in the afternoon, that same afternoon, the helicopter was able to locate our suspect out in a field.
Is it possible for the chopper to guys on him from a bit further out?
I caught sight of something white. Didn't initially know what it was, but circled back around to get a better look, and the object was gone.
Barutsky was texting back and forth with his brother, and his brother actually attended the command post where the Ottawa police negotiator was stationed, and the negotiator took over his brother's phone and was able to communicate directly with our suspect and trying to give him instructions to turn himself in and how to do it safely.
So I continued to circle to see if I could catch a glimpse of it again, and as I did, the subject walked out of the woods and looked up at the helicopter and put his hands in the air, effectively telling me he was surrendering.
We get closer, Ben and Matt making the arrest. He's legal. I'll talk to Belanger. Let him put out, we're on him, we're just cuffing him now.
Can you please confirm this is Basil?
Basil Balutsky.
10-4.
Business as usual. It's what you're trained for, and the fact that his hands were in the air and there was no firearm was obviously a welcome sight to me, not being terribly defensible from the air.
Does it look like the picture?
10-4 does, and that's verbally at this point.
And as soon as I asked the question, she lied. And that's what, it's just like lie, bang. Same with Anastasia. I said, why did you lie in court? She said, I didn't, bang.
Barutsky didn't show any remorse at any point throughout his arrest, throughout his interview. In his own mind, they basically got what they deserved. He tried to differentiate the difference between murder and killing. He'd sometimes make Bible references.
I didn't murder anybody.
That's right, you killed somebody. Correct? Killed 3 people, actually. What's the difference between killing and murder?
Thou shalt not murder. Commandments.
When it's domestic, I think it's a lot more personal than I don't know what a typical homicide would be, but often the level of violence, the rage is at a higher level, and in this particular case, all our victims knew our suspect.
When somebody, it's murder to kill somebody that's innocent. That's why I couldn't kill myself, because I thought about shooting myself, but I can't do that because I am innocent, didn't do it wrong.
The amount of evidence we had against him was overwhelming. I never had another investigation that we had so much evidence against an accused person. The problem in this case was he defended himself. There were some court-appointed lawyers assigned. The Crown was worried about an appeal and that he may try to appeal after the fact and say he didn't get a fair trial because he wasn't properly represented. So right from the outset, we and the investigative team and the Crown attorney took the position that we have to prepare, we have to make this appeal proof.
This is what I want you to do. I want you to look into the past charges against me by those women, and I want you to do that proper investigation.
Although I've been to a lot of murders throughout my career, dealing with 3 different victims, 3 murder scenes, attending 3 separate autopsies, all in a very short span, I found quite taxing. The biggest part, however, was dealing with the victims' families. In this case, dealing with members of the family who were eyewitnesses to the crime, trying to, offer my condolences, at the same time trying to answer some of their questions and give them some perspective as to what's ahead in the justice system. Victims' families were present for the verdicts. I don't think they got any satisfaction out of it. It didn't bring back their loved ones. It certainly, nobody was happy with it. These women, it was an ongoing saga, unfortunately. It was a buildup of violence over the years. The fear built up, and one of the victims, she had a alarm system installed, she had camera, she had a firearm in her house, almost expecting something like this to happen someday, and the sad part is that it did happen. And Barutsky was under all kinds of constraints imposed by the justice system. There was nothing more they could have done short of keeping him in custody. And he's entitled to his constitutional rights, and what more could have been done, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is to that, and that's really troubling.
We have someone walk off the street and confess to killing 8 people, which, you don't hear that very often. I think the biggest shock was probably more the fact that Wetlaufer was a healthcare worker. She was the nurse who was responsible for their loved ones.
People wanted to believe that Wetlaufer must have been an angel of mercy. They wanted to think that, when in fact the information that we had was that wasn't the case at all. Even we didn't want to believe so much that someone could be so evil to do this.
She picked the victims, 75 years of age and older, that made it difficult for us to ever identify if she hadn't confessed.